Так, запис увімкнуто, 15:00 на моєму годиннику. Всім вітання, друзі, всім вітання. Одразу перевіримо зв'язок. Давайте, будь ласка, напишіть в чаті. Поставте 2 плюсики, якщо ви мене зараз чуєте і бачите. Щоб я розуміла. Так, пані Юлія перша, чудово. 2 плюси – це вже дуже позитивний початок. Моє ім'я Олена Міходуй, я методист компанії Internal Education. З великою радістю попрацюю з вами в основній частині сьогоднішнього вебінару, але хочу нагадати для тих, хто, можливо, забув або не звернув увагу, коли реєструвався. У нас сьогодні такий ексклюзивний захід, який ми проводимо виключно для вчителів міста Києва. І дуже дякуємо Центру професійного розвитку педагогічних працівників міста Києва за співпрацю. Дуже завжди вдячні. Сподіваємось в подальшому на продовження співпраці. Пані Ольго, вам слово, а я далі продовжу, друзі.
Добрий день, шановні колеги та колежанки. Ми раді всіх вас вітати на вебінарі, який відбувається у рамках співпраці ПРПП міста Києва та командою Internal Education. Мене звати Ольга Недошитко, я модераторка нашої зустрічі. Дякую кожному і кожній з вас за те, що знаходите час для професійного розвитку та зростання. Приємно бути сьогодні серед людей, які не лише навчають англійською, а й надихають учнів любити мову і використовувати її у житті. Адже англійська – це не просто предмет в школі. Це шлях у великий світ, можливість відкрити нові європейські культурні контексти. І саме ваша праця допомагає дітям отримати ці можливості. Також варто сказати трішки про Internal Education, що це міжнародна освітня компанія, офіційний партнер видавництва Pearson в Україні. Вона вже багато років підтримує вчителів, забезпечує сучасними підручниками, проводить тренінги і вебінари, допомагає впроваджувати новітні методики викладання. Тема нашого сьогоднішнього вебінару – це «What's the motive to study? 7 tips worth trying to drive your student forward». Як мотивувати учнів до навчання? 7 стратегій, які варто спробувати вчителю. Кілька організаційних моментів перед початком. Будь ласка, вимкніть мікрофони під час виступу спікера. Усі запитання залишайте в чаті, ми їх обов'язково озвучимо. В разі повітряної тривоги чи технічних неполадок ви отримаєте запис вебінару на електронну пошту разом з сертифікатом. Прошу вітати нашу чудову спікерку Олену Міходуй, старшу методистку Internal Education та викладача англійської мови.
Дуже дякую, пані Ольго. У вас такий натхненний початок, от якраз в контексті нашої сьогоднішньої теми. Дуже дякую. Дуже дякую. Ну що ж, друзі, бачу, ви пишете, звідки ви, бачу Київ, власне, що ми і очікували, тому що у нас дійсно сьогодні такий заклад виключно для вчителів міста Києва. Можливо, є хтось з області Київської, хтось з іншого регіону раптом, тому що я знаю, що діляться контактами вчителі з друзями, знайомими, з колегами, тому так, можете писати, звідки ви. А тим часом я передам слово зараз своїй колезі. Я сподіваюся, ви вже помітили, що я сьогодні не єдина представниця Internal Education. Зі мною моя прекрасна, чудова, талановита колега Леся Гриценко. Леся вам трішечки такої загальної інформації дасть і контактами поділиться раптом, в когось ще нема контактів, якщо потрібно буде з нами зв'язатися. Ну, а я вже з вами попрацюю в основній такій практичній частині. Тобі, Лесь, тобі слово. Зараз я слайд.
Добрий день, шановні колеги, рада вас вітати. Ще раз повторюсь, мене звати Леся Гриценко. І якщо будуть виникати будь-які питання, що я можу допомогти вам, будь ласка, звертайтесь, і в рамках нашої кампанії все зможу вам допомогти. Отже, дещо сказала Оля про напрямки нашої діяльності, але все ж таки я скажу про основні їх. Ми проводимо багато тренінгів для вчителів англійської та німецької мови. Крім того, якщо вам потрібно дізнатись рівень володіння англійської мови або вашому учню, ви звертаєтесь до нас, і сертифікат Pearson English International Certificate визнають у більше ніж 50 країнах світу. А також, звичайно, що Internal Education пропонує автентичні ресурси з онлайн-компонентами для всіх навчальних закладів. Крім того, ми створюємо високоякісні ресурси спеціально для українського вчителя, які можна використовувати як додатково до основного курсу або самостійно. А зараз хочу декілька слів сказати про основні наші підручники для молодшої, середньої і старшої школи. Отже, для молодшої школи у нас є чудові 3 ресурси. Це FlyHigh, наш бестселер, Team Together з гарною онлайн-підтримкою як для вчителя, так і для учня. І наша новинка – це Stars and Heroes, який був розроблений на основі мультфільмів Disney. Це все доповнює чудові картки і прописи, які, звичайно, зроблять ваші уроки цікавішими. Що стосується, все воно відповідає програмі НУШ, і гриф міністерства, звісно, має. Для середньої школи в нас є 2 ресурси. Основні – це GoGetter, ідеально підходить для класів по годинам і інтенсивності НУШ. І наша новинка – це оновлений Wider World. Я думаю, вже хто його бачив.
Second edition
Да.
for Ukraine.
По
Ось
Ukraine,
так.
так. Це
Second
обов'язково
edition
теж.
for Ukraine.
Звертаємо увагу. Звичайно, і вони, ці ресурси, вони розроблені у співпраці, у партнерстві з медіакорпорацією BBC. Це вам гарантує цікаві і відео. Для старшої школи, я впевнена, ви теж знаєте про наші ресурси, це Focus і HighNote. Вони гарно готують до НМТ-тестів, мають екзаменаційну спрямованість. Будь ласка, звертайтесь і використовуйте їх. Так, ну і нагадую, що наші додаткові і цікаві, гарні розробки, методисти, ну, скажімо так, я інколи кажу, що вклали душу в них, тому що дійсно вони стали у нагоді вчителям, і ми отримували гарні відгуки від них. Будь ласка, використовуйте. Це Grammar in Focus і Focus on Exam. Так, і наша компанія має дуже гарну традицію в кінці вебінару розігрувати підручники. Цього разу, я сподіваюся, вам пощастить і ви отримаєте чудову граматику Grammar in Focus рівня B1. Я думаю, що вона сподобається вам, тому що вона класна, вона містить цікаві вправи, дуже багато відео, і автентичні ці відео, вони дійсно цікаві, і вчителі, хто вже користувався, вони задоволені ними. Так що нехай вам щастить, я сподіваюся, ви отримаєте їх. Так, запишіть, будь ласка, мої контакти. Хочу сказати, що я працюю не з усім містом, тому якщо вам потрібно буде консультація або особиста присутність, наприклад, менеджерів з нашої команди, будь ласка, звертайтесь до мене, і я вконтактую вас безпосередньо з відповідальним менеджером. Дякую вам за увагу. Зараз, Оленка, тобі слово передаю.
Дуже
Сподіваюсь,
дякую.
може, хтось з знайомих тут є.
Ну,
Не
я
знаю.
бачу, потрошку люди доєднуються.
Да,
Дякую,
да.
Леся, за інформацію. Я єдине, що дозволь поправлю, тому
Мгм.
що мені здається, це просто обмовилась ти. У нас сьогодні 3 прекрасних призи. Ну, вірніше, це той самий посібник, 3 екземпляри, комусь пощастить. Але там не відео, там аудіо. Тому що, ну, щоб
Ой.
там дійсно, ти правильно сказала, там дуже-дуже багато аудіо
Я
записано.
оговорилась, да, це
Нам
я, да.
начитували
Мгм.
native спікери, до кожного граматичного уроку там багато аудіоситуацій і так далі. Але ну так, до відео ще, можливо, в наступному виданні цієї граматики ми вже зробимо відео. Але
Можливо,
тут
це я
поки що
хочу, щоб
аудіо.
так воно
Нічого,
було.
це, напевно, ти так хочеш. Добре,
Да,
дуже
да.
дякую. Дуже дякую. Я переймаю естафету, готові вже попрацювати. Для тих, хто щойно доєднався, друзі, хочу нагадати, це важливо. Раптом тривога, потрібно перейти в інше місце. Запис уже увімкнуто, відеозапис. разом з сертифікатами. Думаю, завтра, максимум післязавтра, на електронні ваші пошти ви отримаєте відеозапис і сертифікат. І ще момент, він важливий, але я завжди його проговорюю. Сертифікат генерує, власне, платформа Zoom. І він буде згенеровано, якщо учасник присутній щонайменше 75% часу вебінару. У нас по плану працювати до 16:30, тобто 1,5 години ми закладаємо завжди. Якщо 75% часу ви тут зі мною, сертифікат буде згенеровано. Якщо ні, раптом у вас інші справи або не пробудете ви тут таку кількість часу, то ви обов'язково отримаєте відеозапис, але не буде сертифікату. Ну, така деталь, щоб потім не було непорозумінь, запитань. Я думаю, тут все, власне, чесно. Okay, are we ready to start? Can you please give me a sign, everyone? Those of you, I know some of you are probably tired. I'm sure you've had quite a few lessons already. Some people hungry, I guess, but still thank you very much for being now here with me. I hope for at least some participation with me throughout the webinar in the chat. Can you give me a sign? You can write yes, plus, let's start. Any sign which shows that you are ready for the main part of the session. Oleg was the first one. Gentlemen first, usually we say ladies first. Thank you very much. Oleg, Tatiana, ready? Okay, let's start. Let's get started. So the sooner we start, the sooner it's over, right? Right, so you remember, since you registered for today's webinar, that the topic is something about motivation, right? I promised to share some tips about how I motivate my students, and hopefully at least some of these tips will work for your students. But I'd like to start with a very short, very easy task for you. I promise not to torture you too much at the start, but still, a little task for you. Let's dream together. Let's dream professionally, okay? No personal dreams, just professional. I started a sentence for you. Have a look at this sentence starter. I have a dream that one day all my students will always, and I would really love to see some of the endings, possible endings of the sentence in the chat. So how would you finish the sentence if I asked you to dream away, just dream big, don't be shy. You never know, dreams come true. So if you could finish it, please, just a few endings for me to see. I'll show you some my dreams later. Okay, I have a dream that one day all my students will, how would you finish the sentence? No dreams? Nothing? Will always be happy to speak English fluently. Wow, that's great, Svetlana. Yeah, I love it. So they will want to speak English, yes? They will be motivated enough to want to learn to speak it. Any other dreams? I know some people are probably cautious about sharing dreams because people say just if you share your dream with someone, it might not come true. But yeah, I would like to see some more endings. Anything else? So I have a dream that one day all my students will be happy to speak English. Will be willing to be positive. Wow, that's great. Yeah, sometimes it does not always depend on us or on students, just on circumstances oftentimes, but still that's a great dream. Yeah. Okay. So at least a couple or more from you. See, I'm curious. Oleg will always do their homework and participate in all activities. Yeah, that's one of my dreams for sure. All right, actually, I think I'll show some of my endings. Since I'm a teacher like you are here, so I've been teaching for 24 plus years already. And I think we share same dreams, all teachers do. So let's have a look at what I have here. So I have a dream, just have a look at this wonderful, perfect Dream classroom. So all students are watching you. Their faces are so positive. They're so eager to participate. They're so happy to be in this classroom. All hands raised. Wow. So my dream is like one day my students will always be eager to answer my questions. I personally think that would make me happy as a teacher. I don't know whether you agree with me on this or not, because sometimes we think of some very interesting, thought-provoking questions, like teachers, and we ask the question in class, and there is either silence or students don't really want to contribute, or I see that they're just too lazy to think. It is discouraging. So yeah, so I hope they will always be eager to answer my questions. Or another dream of mine, one day all my students will always listen attentively to whatever I say, take notes without me telling them to write it down. They just hear something important and note it down. Can you imagine? And ask questions. That's also a very powerful sign that students are interested in what's happening. When they say, can I ask you a question? Wow, that's a perfect moment. Students will willingly participate in all pair work and group work activities. And here I think we share the same dream with Olaf, right? And one more thing, students will always be ready with homework and maybe even ask for more because they love it so much. So the list of dreams can go on and on and on, but cutting the long story short, let's get real, right? So sometimes no matter how hard we try, no matter how much effort we put into, just making that interesting, perfect lesson, we see facial expressions like this. And we see that something does not click, something does not match. So students do not care, they are not motivated. And motivation is the word, or is the thing, is the issue which we blame most of all. So there are other causes probably for, a feeling like this or a situation like this. But normally when we discuss, classroom cases in the staff room, we say, oh, they're not motivated enough, or their level of motivation is so low this year. So that's the word we mention. A short disclaimer, guys. Today, in this webinar, I will not be describing the different types of motivation, because I'm sure you've already heard enough about extrinsic, intrinsic, all this stuff, so I won't be mentioning that. I won't be talking about the importance of needs analysis at the start of a year and how you do that. I will not be talking about gamification, because this is one of those things. I'm sure you've attended lots of sessions where useful sessions where they say that the more fun students have, the more interactive, games you include, the more motivated your students become, which is true. And again, today I won't be talking about having fun and games, though they are important, obviously. What I suggest we focus on instead is the question, why? Why do we do something at all? It's not something we often reflect upon. So let's think about it now. So on a daily basis, me, you, everyone, we wake up in the morning and we start moving. So we start doing certain actions. If I ask you just a few examples, think about your typical morning, your typical day, your typical week. Let's say you wake up and you make yourself this first cup of coffee, or it might be tea if you don't drink coffee. The question is, why do you do it? So you wake up, you probably wish you could stay a little longer in bed, but you drag yourself up and you just get out, you walk to kitchen and you make yourself this first cup of coffee or tea. Why would you put this effort into this action? Why do you do that? Any questions? And I expect some responses from you. Why do you personally make this first drink in the morning? Is it your duty? What's the reason? I'm not asking now about, breakfast, which you make for a family. You make yourself your first cup of your morning drink. Why? See, I'm waiting. I know that some of you think, oh, someone else will type something in the chat, but I would like to see at least a couple of responses. I'm sorry. But that's why I make these pauses. It's a pleasant routine. Thank you, Olaf. What would I do without you today? So you're the most active participant. So thank you so much. So it's something pleasant. It's a routine, but routines can be different. Sometimes it can be a burden, which you can't avoid, but it's a pleasant routine. So you enjoy it. So it's, yeah, something which you still call a routine. Any other reasons, guys? Why do you make yourself this first cup of coffee or tea? Anyone else apart from Oleg? Okay. Suspicious silence. We can do it because it's our favorite drink. Anna says, so it means it gives some positive, it has some positive meaning here. So you do it when you do something, there is some effort, just which is involved, but it sounds like it's something you enjoy because it's favorite. So you love it. It's a way to start a day. You are used to doing that. Okay, another example. From time to time, I'm sure people who live in bigger cities like Kiev, you go to a supermarket and you do your grocery shopping. Okay, whether you like it or not. Some people enjoy it, by the way. Some people don't, but we all do it. The question is, why? It's not as exciting, let's be honest, as drinking this first wonderful, cup of coffee. Why do you go and do your grocery shopping? I know it sounds like, what kind of question is that? Why? But that's the whole point. So that's the question I want to get to hear some answer for. Don't be surprised. Why do you do your grocery shopping? Again, is it something you enjoy? Is it a pleasant routine? Is it one of your favorite activities, or there is another reason to that? Okay, let me check. Maybe your silence means you never go, you never do grocery shopping. And that's why you don't see the point, just in answering this question. No one? No volunteers? No one? Why do you go? You expect some positive outcome from the shopping. So when you go to the supermarket, we're getting hungry from time to time, right, Hannah? So you need to do it. So time comes, so end of week, for example, before a weekend, or I don't know, or depends when you do it, but your fridge gets empty and you need to stock it again. So you have to, right, take advantage of sales or special offers. Okay. One more example. You plan your lessons. I hope you do that. Okay. I don't even ask whether you plan your lessons. Maybe even if you don't write, the proper lesson plan in your copybook, but at least you look through the page you're going to teach the following day and think what's going to happen. Why do you do that? Why do you spend time to plan lessons and you do it every day? So you look through book pages, you think, you take some notes down. Why do you do that? Again, is it something exciting? Is it something really, really pleasant? Is it more of a duty or burden to you? Just I'll accept all answers. There are no wrong answers to these questions, by the way. So why do you spend time to plan your lessons? It helps you to stay or to be more organized. Okay. So, so it's something useful, right? Maybe not that pleasant, or wow thing, but it's something useful which you consciously understand will help you during the lesson. Achieve clear learning objectives. All right. Would you say it's something you love doing or it's something you have to do? Because I want to make my lessons more interesting, organized, and informative. Oh, that's a great answer, Anna. Yeah, okay. Just you have to do it. Okay. I wonder if any of you would say, I love lesson planning. I know lots of teachers would say probably, I love teaching, but you love the thing. So you love planning, right, Tamara? Okay. Okay, good. So the list can go on and on and on, but I hope you started like getting where I'm driving you to. Sometimes whether you want it or not, you go and see your dentist, okay? Dog owners, no matter what the weather is like outside, you take your dog and you walk it outside, right? So my main message here is no matter what we do, just all of us, not just students, teachers, like all human beings, no matter what it is that we do, there are these primary core buttons, and one of them is pressed like or pushed each time. So it's either you do something because you want to, it means you love doing it, you enjoy it. Like think back about this coffee. You love the smell, it's something, it's your precious, this 5 minutes of your precious morning self-time, whatever. So again, something that it's something that you do because you love it, you want it, you enjoy it. And another reason it's like you do something, but it's because you need to. You have to, it's your responsibility, it's your duty, there is no way out. So, and again, it's another kind of a trigger. So you do it anyway, but see the reason why here we have these two different buttons. Keeping this in mind, this want to button or need to button, if you think about your average day, or let's say your average week, so an average week of yours, how many things or how often you think you do things because you want to do them, and how often throughout that average week of yours you do things because you have to, you need to, what that ratio would be for you. It's just a guesstimate. I know you say 50-50. Wow, that's a great balance, I would say. So you're a happy person, Larissa. So the older we get normally, so the ratio is changing, just, that's great, 50-50 is wonderful. So what about the rest of you guys? So I promise I won't share this information with anyone. So would it be, I don't know, a 20 to 80? So the first number you write is you want to, you love to. And the second number is you have to, you need to. Oleg is yet happier than Larissa. See, 20 to, so is it 20 to 80 or 80 to 20? Because it makes a huge difference, Oleg. So the first one is I want to do it. So is it 20 to 80? Or 80 to 20? Okay. All right. Okay. So if you ask me, it probably would be, I don't know, maybe 30 to 70. Sometimes 35 to 65, somewhere like this. Okay, so let's get back to our classroom teaching students. So I still remember why we're here today, don't worry. So the same scenario applies, and the same two buttons work for our students actually, the same two want to or need to button. And if you now think about an average teenage group which you teach, so let's say 7th year students, for example, an average group of teenagers, throughout your lesson, like 45-minute long lesson, how often do you think throughout that lesson period your teenage students do what you ask them to do because they want to do it, because they really enjoy doing it, and how often they do it because they have to? because they need to, because you told them to do that. So again, I know it's again another guesstimate. An average teenager in your average teenage group, lesson period. So what that ratio would be, like, of their motivation and willingness to do things, and why? Want to / need to. Can I see some numbers in the chat for your students, like average teens? So what would your answer be here? So the first number would stay for, I love it, that's why I do it in an English lesson, or I have to read this text, the second one. Okay, so I'm letting you process this information, but still, guys, I'd like to hear something from you. That's why I'm just making these pauses, and I want to see some responses in the chat. So we don't often have time for reflections like this, so I decided to start with this kind of activity. So anyone? I don't hear from you. So your typical teens, how often they do things in your class because they initially love it, because they want it, and how often they do it because there is no way out, they'll be punished, or just the silence. Okay, all right. Now, I will share with you today, guys, 7 tips which I, as a teacher, I've worked with teenagers for 2 decades already. And I love working with teens, by the way. So I did try all these tips with my teenage groups. They worked for me. That's why actually I'm sharing these tips with you, because hopefully at least some of these tips will work for like your classrooms, for your students. I can't guarantee, I cannot promise they will, just do some magic in the classroom, because teenagers are challenging to teach. They're very, very different. You can never guess, their state of mind, their emotional state. So that's challenging. However, it's interesting to work with teens. So again, if you find some of my ideas interesting, just please give them a try, and hopefully, I will help you boost your students' motivation. So let's get started. And I decided to start with tip number 7, not number 1. It does not mean it's the least important tip of all. No, not at all. So we'll just, to make it more memorable, more interesting. So we'll move upstairs, so to say, we'll move upwards. And my tip number 7, or number 1, goes like, share responsibility with students, which might sound a bit weird, even because it does not even sound in a very motivating way. People normally don't want any extra responsibility. No one normally wants extra responsibility, to say nothing about our students. What I mean here is with every teenage group I teach, whenever I get a new group of teenagers, or maybe it's the same group of teen who I worked with the previous year, but we didn't do it the previous year because, say, they were too young. This year, I normally started with year 6, or even that's a 7 students and older. I plan at the very beginning of a new academic year, a very serious, adult-like, tough conversation. And I plan it. It's on my lesson plan. I allocate some time for this conversation. Normally, it goes like this. So you begin the lesson. So it might be even the very first lesson of a new academic year, or any other lesson whenever you want to have this conversation. And you say, guys, I have some bad news and some good news. You can even play around a little bit with this, just phrase. And so let them choose which piece of news they want you to start with. But anyway, you start with the bad news. So If I'm physically in the classroom with students, I go to the blackboard, a whiteboard, and I slowly write down one sentence on the board. If it's an online class, I show the sentence on a slide. And the sentence is, I cannot teach you English. That's the bad news. Unfortunately, I cannot teach you the language. You make pauses, you do make pauses, and you'll see that your students are watching like in a bit perplexed way or manner because they don't understand normally what's happening. You were the teacher the previous year. Why can't you suddenly teach them English? Then you add after a certain pause. But the good news is, guys, you can learn the language. And again, you make another pause and there will be silence in the room. So give some seconds to get the message across, to get it, like let it sink. Then I try sometimes to elicit from students, I ask them to explain to me the difference between the verbs teach and learn, okay? And we kind of discuss this thing. So my main message is, I say, guys, I know I've been your teacher for a few years, or I'm your new teacher this year, depending on the situation. And my job is, I'm called a teacher, but my job is to help you along the way. I will do my best to explain things, explain all the rules. I'll answer all your questions. I'll give you tasks to practice English. However, if speaking English fluently, really good English is not on your personal plan, I can't read your minds, guys. I don't know your plans for the future. Maybe English is not on your plan, which is fine. We all have different plans. For example, I don't plan to speak Italian. I mean, it's not on my plan. So maybe English is not on yours. I don't know. So, but if it's not, I cannot help you. And you'll be talking, so you'll see that some students at some point might just switch off. Let them switch off, so they're not interested. But believe me, in every group, wherever I have this conversation, at least 1/3 of my students will keep watching you like with interest, with curiosity, and will listen very attentively. And then I normally ask a couple of more provocative questions, or just one provocative question. I say, okay, guys, imagine we cancel English at all. Imagine it's not on the school program. So we've recently had this conversation in the staff room, and we were thinking whether, I don't know, maybe you could substitute English with whatever subject you wanted. You could have some more lessons of history per week, or physical education, or physics, whatever you want, but not English. Would you be happier? I mean, would it be beneficial? And again, you'll see this wave of excitement. Hooray, yes, no English, let it happen, let it come down. And then again, you say, all right, can you now think, let's just brainstorm all together, at least 3 benefits, 3 advantages of not having English at school, and 3 disadvantages. And again, let them think aloud, let them think of some advantages, disadvantages. This is the most valuable process, when they start kind of thinking why they, not you, not their parents, because that's what teenagers normally think. It's their English mark, or their English is for their parents or for their teacher. Or sometimes I say that, guys, what if I cancel homework at all? And you can imagine students' happiness and excitement. Yes, let's do that. No homework. Okay. Give them time. But then you say, okay, so if you name at least 5 advantages, okay, so I'll think it over. I promise. I might even cancel it. So I won't. But that's the way I approach this conversation. Can you name 5 convincing advantages to me as a teacher, about not having homework? So let me write them down. So advantage number 1. So, and again, let them brainstorm, let them voice on their opinions. So my main message is this conversation, then you move on, obviously. And again, it will not work for all of the students in the classroom, but believe me, I do it every time with every teenage group I have. And I clearly see that it does work for some of the students. They get my message. And later, obviously, it's this external motivation. So I'm sharing responsibility from the moment like this conversation happens on. Sometime 1 month later, for example, one of the students comes like to class and I see like no homework. Okay, I didn't do my homework. I sometimes remind them about this conversation. Guys, remember, I don't need this homework. It's not for me, it's for you. And they kind of, okay. So I remind them about this conversation. So my main message is, I treat you like adults, guys. I'm like a partner. So let's make a deal. I'll do everything I can on my part just to help you along the way. I hope you'll play along. So it's a two-way ticket. They love teenagers. You know, when you treat them like adults, they like when they see you're open, you're honest. And I normally say, look, whenever you have a question, here's my phone number. So if they don't yet have your phone number, I say, I use this and that messenger. Just send me a question. I'll be happy to answer. And they like it. They see that, well, like she's treating me like an equal. In the light of my personal teaching experience, students never, ever overuse this option. Don't be afraid that, okay, I'll give them my phone number and I'll get, you know, just thousands of phone calls or messages. No, they will not. Just feel good about this. Okay, so this was something, see, I was kind of dwelling for maybe too long about this tip, but this is something which I really, really believe in. It's about this kind of motivation. You can call it external, but it does work with some teenage students. So I think it is worth trying. Just give it a try. Let's move on to the second one. It's number 6 on my list, and it's called Explain Why. What I mean here is sometimes when you start the lesson with, you know, something which is important, something which is on your teacher's plan, you say, okay, guys, today we're going to practice reading skills. We'll read a text about it. Today we'll do some grammar. So we'll practice present simple. Even the best of your students, those who care about English, those who are kind of good, diligent students, does it sound really exciting? Even though they understand that, yeah, this is important, grammar, reading skills, it's not exciting from the very start. So why not try to add something to make it more motivating, more exciting? How I normally do it, when I plan a lesson, so I look at the page I'll be teaching tomorrow. I see the page and think about like the lesson stages. What do I do for the warmer? What I do next, how I like round the lesson up. And I try, while like thinking about the lesson outline for the next day, I try to think about a possible bridge between the lesson content and students' real life. So maybe not every single lesson, but as often as possible, I try to think of a reason which I'll let students know about why they might need sooner or later in life the book page content. Few examples. By the way, you'll be practicing your creative thinking this way, like teachers' creative thinking. Imagine you start a lesson, whatever way you do it. Hi, how are you? What about your hamster? Is it still, just alive, or how's your little brother? Whatever way you start a lesson, homework, check. Okay. Then instead of saying something like, now open your book pages, that and that, you, without explaining what you're actually doing, come to the board and you draw a table. Students get curious, so probably you notice that. So when you do something, especially when it's like kind of slower motion, you don't explain what's happening, they get curious and they start following you. Like, what's this table about? Then I add some age groups. And then I'm not saying like we've started a new topic or a new lesson or book page that or that. No, nothing. I say, okay, guys, have a look at this simple table. Now, can you think about 3 people, real people from your life, family members, friends, I don't know, neighbors, who belong to these age groups? Think. So I'll give you 30 seconds. Note, like write the names down. So let them do that, and believe me, all of them will be eager to do that because it's something personal. They're still intrigued what's going to happen next. Then after they do that, yeah, it's just a variation. If you wish, you could say, can you think of some famous people? And believe me, teenagers know lots of celebrities and all those YouTubers and stars and stuff. So, but they do the same. Then you introduce the notion of generations. You can ask them what they think these letters stand for. Normally students know something about Generation Z because they've heard about that. And then I have a set of slides which I use again and again. I once made these slides, and this lesson is always a success because that's how you sell the value of the lesson to your group. So I say, by the way, did you know that the first ever officially recorded generation is called the Lost Generation? See, people born at the end of the 19th century. And I have some photographs. Sometimes I change them from time to time, but photographs of people who represent these generations. Sometimes I let students guess the names, sometimes so I just show them the names. By the way, do you recognize this gentleman? Anyone? Do you? Anyone? Any suggestions at least who this guy might be? He looks very elegant, very decent, I would say, because his lifestyle was wilder than his looks in this photo. No, not a single suggestion. Anyone? Okay. Ernest Hemingway. Thank you, Tatiana. And you move on, the greatest generation, and Queen Elizabeth was one of the brightest representatives, the silent generation, baby boomers, which my students find funny because for most of teenage students, that's their grandparents, who belong into this group. And they say, I'll let my grandma, granddad know that she or he is a baby boomer. Generation X, Y, Z, Alpha. So we start, all over again. And why actually I am kind of wasting precious lesson time by starting a lesson this way? Believe me that when the time comes, okay, I'll spend some up to 5 minutes doing this. Students will enjoy, guaranteed, this part of your lesson. Probably it will be the most memorable part of your lesson. Who knows? But when at last you say, now let's open page 8 of our course books, and they open it and they see this huge, not really exciting, in terms of length, reading text, they already have a reason to read it because we've discussed it. We belong to different generations themselves, and their parents, they belong to different generations. That's why maybe they have clashes because, well, we have different features. So let's read about 3 recent generations and let's see how different you are from your parents and so on. So, and they're much more eager, at least at the start of the lesson, to read it because it exists. The theory of generations exists, and they want to learn more about that. Another example, how I build this bridge between the lesson and their life. I say, okay, guys, and remember, I'm talking to my teenage students. You know what teenagers are like, right? I say, imagine you go traveling. Do you like traveling? Yes, everyone loves traveling. So you go traveling and you meet someone you like. So it's very, very possible. You see a girl you really like, or a handsome boy you like, and unfortunately that person does not speak Ukrainian. What shall we do? And imagine the person you like start sharing facts about himself or herself. For example, you like this guy and he says, I've got one younger brother, or he says, I don't really like crowded places. And surprise, surprise, whatever he says, you are very similar, and you want to say я також. І це у нас співпадає, і тут ми схожі. You want to show this person that you're interested in a conversation and you're very similar. How would you say я також in English? And that's the question I would address to my students. How would you say, guys, how would you say я також? Because you want to show you're similar. My students most probably would say, especially stronger students, me too. And that's the catch. I say, okay, me too, I got it. Is it the only way you can say я також? How would you say я також in response to I don't really like crowded places? Is it me too? And believe me, at this point they say, is it not? I mean, is it not correct? I say, You say me neither. And at this very moment, probably not 100 of your students, but those who care, I mean, who get curious, they say, what's the difference then? And then this is the moment when I say, now let's open page that and that. This is the language we'll learn today. So I'll teach you the difference between я також for different situations. And believe me, guys, this is the language I guarantee you will need one day in your life, because you will talk to people you like, and you will want to show how interested you are in blah, blah, blah. So, and that's how you kind of sell the value, and they are eager to kind of really try to retain something from the lesson because they feel like it's important. Another example, how you make this bridge between why they do something in class and some relevance, like of the activity or the lesson content for their life outside the lesson, actually, is exams. Do we have anyone here present today who currently teaches 11th year students? If you teach 11th year students this year, can you please write number 11 in the chat so I can check how many happy and lucky people we have? Oksana has 11th year students. Ola has. Okay, congratulations, guys. So it's one of the most challenging, but at the same time, memorable and really important years. So good luck with your 11th year students. So back to the bridges between the lesson content and students' life, and exams are a part of their life. What I do normally to kind of switch them on, and it's about their responsibility which switches on here. Imagine we do some lesson page from a course book. So there are lots of things, pre-reading, like this reading lesson, they discuss things, whatever. And then I see it while preparing for the lesson, that one of the tasks here is identical. It's just identical. Have a look at this task. To one of NMT reading tasks. I would point it out, and those students who are preparing for NMT in English, they will listen to what you say here. I would say, okay, guys, do you remember we analyzed NMT like past papers together? Like so, or like I know, for example, they did have a look at NMT from 2024, so they kind of know what the format is about. I say, do you remember which NMT task it's identical to? Does it remind you of task 1 from NMT, task 2, 3, or 4? Let's check who has the best, visual memory. Who remembers NMT, what NMT task 1 looks like? Remember from a real paper? Task 2, task 3, and task 4. And believe me, I see that they start like recalling that format, and they even start arguing, it looks like task 3. No, task 3 is about short texts. It's different. It's a very, very useful process. By the way, do you remember which NMT task it's similar to? The reading part, obviously, not the use of English part. One of the tasks from the reading part comes with a long text, 5 questions, 4 options each. Do you remember? Task 1, 2, 3, or 4? Oksana, well done. Well done. Perfect. This is task 2. Students normally they hate this reading task. Long read, 5 questions, multiple choice. And again, this is a point when you say, do you remember, guys, how we approach this task? Remember, we discussed the strategies, or like vice versa, you say, I'll teach you how to save time while doing this task. What do you think you do first? You read the questions and the options and then the text, or you start with the text and then the questions, or do you read all the questions only without options? So what the procedure to save time? I'll teach you how to do that. Sometimes the tasks in your course books, they are not 100% identical, because as a teacher, as like a teacher who prepares students for an exams, I remember exact exam format. This is very important, by the way. So because for me, as a student who is like really, really well prepared for an exam, it's not a student with just, proper level of English. It's a student who, with his eyes closed, can like recite, what the exam format is. So he can describe what task 1 looks like 5 short texts, task 2, task 3, 6 short text, 8 options, and so on and so forth. So, and again, here I would say, does it look like any of the tasks from NMT? It's not identical, but it's very, very similar. Here we have 3 texts and 7 options in NMT. In X task 3, you will have 6 short texts and 8 options. Do you remember what you start with? Do we start with the options and then the texts, or do we start with the texts and then we do the options? And again, you kind of trigger their inner motivation to keep that in mind, because they will do the test. You won't be there in that room with them. Okay, whatever way you try to sell the lesson value to your students, just try to make it relatable and important and relevant for your students, in my humble opinion. So it's about their own motivation again. So let it be external motivation, probably not internal. Let it be that need to button, not love to button, but still, this is what you do to just make them participate in the process of learning. A few words about assessment. Yet another tip from me. So assessment is a huge thing. I won't be digging, deep into that. So my webinar today is not actually about assessment. However, a question over to you guys. Do you give your students marks at all? Whatever system you use, 12-point system, you might be using some other systems, because some teachers I know at some private language schools, they use other systems of assessment. Oksana, give students marks. Okay. What about some other participants? So do you give students marks? Maybe not every single lesson, but yes or no? It's a very simple yes, 12-point system, or yes, only 12s, Oleg says. Okay. All right. So just 2 people. We've got quite a few participants here today, and only 2 people give students marks. Hanna gives students marks. Okay. Why I'm asking, guys? It's not because I'm just trying my best to work you hard after a hard working day you had. No, I just wanted to check whether you follow me, whether you're still with me. And whether I want to check, just by looking at your answers, whether the information about to share is relevant, for you. Because if you don't give your students marks, then you don't have to listen to what I'm about to say right now. So if you give students marks from time to time or every single lesson, very often what happens, again, maybe it's not your scenario, but I remember last year, I remember this conversation with this girl. She was we had private lessons. I had private lessons with a girl, a good girl, average English user, because English is her second foreign language. Anyway, And I remember at the start of the lesson, she's a teenager, and I asked about her school English lesson and what they were doing and stuff, because we had our own program. And she said, I got an 8. She started with a mark. My question was about what did you do in class in English? What did you learn? And she came up with this mark, because for students, well, this is important. And she said, I've got a 9 or an 8. I don't remember exactly what the mark was. And it was like this neutral phase. So I couldn't say whether she's happy with this mark or not. But this was important because she started with the mark. And when I said, okay, so what was the mark for? I mean, so what did you do? Was it for grammar? Did you study some new grammar? Did you watch a film? Was it for listening or speaking? And she was confused, so it was a mark for the lesson. So we did a bit of everything. And I think she was a bit discouraged because she probably hoped to get a better mark, or maybe she was not quite sure why it's a 9, not 10 or 8. I hope you understand what I mean. Sometimes students will never say that. Well, some students might, come up to you and say why it's an 8 or why it's a 7. But most students don't say anything. And when they come back home, parents might ask, oh, another 7 or 8 for English? What, why 7, why 8? And students say, I don't know. And because they really don't know. So my message here is to try to be a little bit more open about why and what they get a mark for. You don't need to explain all those little, sub-criteria and criteria which constitute a mark, because it's too complicated. But if you even in simple terms outline the aspects of language work which was assessed, it gives some sense of understanding, and if students feel better. Okay, for example, how I do it. We do the lesson. This is an example of a lesson page. And it's labeled listening. So there is a lot of speaking. There is some vocabulary here, obviously, but the main focus is listening. So at the start of the lesson, I say, okay, guys, we will have a very interesting lesson. We'll do lots of listening. So we'll practice our audiovania listening skills. At the end, everyone will get a mark here in the register, and your marks today will be for listening. So please stay focused. I'll ask you to listen to the same track several times with different tasks. That's our main focus, okay? Let's get started. And then you give them marks, and believe me, they come home, and let's say someone's parents who care, they say, oh, you've got a 7? Why 7? Why not 8 like last week? And students say, it says аудіювання. So my speaking is better, maybe my grammar was better. Це такий аспект. That's why it's 7. Okay. So it kind of makes some sense, both for parents and even for students. She notices some aspect of my work. Sometimes say it can be a listening lesson, but as a teacher, I understand that maybe it's too simple. I have a really strong group of students, and I know that listening will not be a problem. But here we've got some wonderful, wonderful speaking activities. I can announce straight away, guys, we'll do lots of listening today. However, I'll ask you to speak in pairs and in groups throughout the lesson, and I will give you marks for your speaking today. So try to be active, generate ideas, try to be fluent. That's what I'm going to be assessing. And again, students kind of understand what to focus on. Sometimes I give students 2 marks, one for different aspects. And again, I announce that. And it is more motivating, if you wish, because it's clearer for students what is assessed, and they, especially if you give a fair mark and they see, okay, 7, 11, kind of, yeah, so my speaking was better than my listening. I couldn't hear that and that, but I was quite fluent. Yeah, so 7, 11, fine. So I see the point. Another thing which I try with students, especially with teenage students, especially in the context of the new Ukrainian school, those of you who work in NUSH classes, you probably will understand what I'm talking about. Have a look, another page, use of English. This is a very, very exam-oriented lesson. So here the main language focus is so and such, the difference, right? However, have a look at these wonderful, fantastic speaking activities. Discuss, do you or do you like to live with 3 generations of your family? Can you imagine this? Like 3 generations of a family living in one house or a flat. Okay, so probably house would be better because more space. What advantages can you think of? What disadvantages can you think of? Another question, which generation, this is interesting, do you think benefits most from living in one home? This is something to think about. If you ask me straight away now, I wouldn't know what to say. I would need some time to kind of think about it and maybe take some notes. I have never thought about this before. Same with your students, they would need some thinking time. They start discussing things, okay? So I go around, monitor, listen, take notes, and then I give them marks. I say, Oksana, you've got a 10. Whatever, Andrei, you've got an 11, or vice versa. It could be 11, 11. Any suggestions from you guys in the chat? I would really appreciate some ideas from you. What do you think I would assess here? Just what exactly would be that criterion which I would use to assess this particular speaking activity? This particular speaking task does not ask for any language in particular. So I'm not checking any particular grammar or vocabulary set. So here students rely on their own experience and whatever language they have. So what do you think would I be assessing? So think about these questions, discuss advantages, disadvantages, who benefits most. Any suggestions? Okay, it's one of those skills which are crucial for both like the new Ukrainian school at the same time, though they are, it's like international practice, by the way, the 4 C's, critical thinking being one of those 4 pillars, like important skills which we need to develop. So, and imagine your average student or weaker student whose English is far from being perfect, who normally gets some 6 or 7 for accuracy, whatever, and suddenly he gets a 10 or 11 for ideas. It's so motivational. It could be like 10/7. And I say, guys, I was listening to advantages, disadvantages. You generated so many wonderful ideas. I wouldn't be able to do it better myself. That's great. And this is really valuable, especially for weaker students. Another example, grammar lesson, defining relative clauses. One of the marks would be for grammar, obviously. But look at these final production activities. They describe their dream school, perfect classroom, perfect canteen, perfect equipment. So here I would definitely assess students' creativity. So, and again, it's a very, very important and motivating mark for students, especially those students who are not, the fastest students, the stars of your classroom. When they see that you hear their ideas, you value their ideas. So try to define what aspect of language work you assess, and sometimes think about assessing not just language, but some other skills as well. Okay. Do you praise your students, guys? Yes or no in the chat, plus or minus. Do you praise your students? Yes, definitely. That's great, Oksana. What about other participants? Yes, Tatiana. Okay. Anyone else would go for a yes or no? Just not many replies from you guys. Is it the weather? Is it because you're busy with something else? I did hope for some more participation. Okay, yes, from Larissa. Okay, so obviously praising students is a very good thing. And I'm not asking whether it is motivating or not, it is. So if you praise students like Oksana does, Tatiana, Larissa, keep praising. What can be more motivating than praising students? Criticizing, well, whenever we correct errors, students see it as criticism. Whenever you give some feedback and say, but you could improve this and that, we understand it's not criticism, we just give feedback. Students see it as criticism. So criticism or like error correction is not something probably motivating for students, though it's useful. Let's focus on praise. It's good that you say you praise students. Keep praising. It is motivating. Can I hear at least a couple of phrases from you? Do you have any favorite phrases which you always use when you want to say молодец? Молодец. Very quickly, what's the first phrase, your favorite go-to phrase which you use when you want to praise a student or students? Keep it up. Good. Any, well done. Cool. Great job. Proud of you. Cool. Thank you very much. Lovely. Yeah, great. My tip here today, obviously, if you praise students, keep praising, but my tip is just do it smartly. Excellent, great. Praise smartly. What I mean here is, I don't know if you remember that there are different types of praise. It's a very interesting subject for research, by the way. If you like what you hear from me now, you can Google and find some more information later. It's really, really interesting. Just in a nutshell, there are three major types of praise which educators use in the classroom. The so-called achievement-based praise. This is the type of praise, let's say, I used to use most of the time. And I think the examples I have here is great job, well done, excellent, are great examples of achievement-based praise. You say, молодец. You praise the result, achievement, and you want to say, you're a star, this kind of awesome is another example of achievement-based praise. Let's move on. Another type of praise is so-called effort-based praise. See, the emphasis is like shifted a bit from achievement to effort. You comment on students' academic efforts, maybe their performance, or not maybe, in most cases, their performance is not perfect. Probably they made quite a few mistakes in, say, their presentation. You will point them out a bit later, but you praise their effort. A few examples, and again, I'm sure, have you ever used phrases like, good try, or wow, that's a good attempt? However, and then you kind of add something or correct it. But you don't always praise, their perfect answer or a correct word they name. So they see that, I see that you tried really hard. I've noticed that, so I'm so proud of you. However, so you mispronounced this and that, or you must have been practicing. So you, I don't know, your students hand in some homework. You give it back with quite a few corrections, but you say, look, there is something for you to read about and to think about. But you know what? I've noticed that you must have been like putting some effort. I see that you are making progress. Keep doing that. I'm seeing that. You are so active today. And the third type of praise is behavior-based praise. So it's not about like academic stuff. It's about their actions and behavior. And again, this is something which is worth like mentioning and praising. And it's really, really beneficial. It's really good when you say, look, I was watching how you work together. You didn't interrupt each other. You were listening. I heard you said, thank you. And I heard you said, your turn. Wow. I'm impressed with this kind of, teamwork. And they love it. So it's not about the great English. It's not about English, but it's something which, like, you were polite. I noticed how you were helping your partner. That's friendship. That's like, that's how it should be done. Just if I ask you now, just a brief answer, I hope to get somehow challenging for me today to hear from you in the chat. Which of these do you think are the most beneficial, or which one is the most beneficial type of praise of all? Obviously, all of them are good. All of them can be used. Which one, if you could only choose one type of praise, which one would you use? Would you choose as a number one? Too difficult to say, yeah? All of them. Effort, so I'm proud of you. Yeah, I'm proud of you. Number two, 1 and 2. Okay, thank you very much. Now have a look at my slides. Do you see this red cross? Some of you might be surprised. Number 2, yeah, no wonder effort-based praise is really good. Yeah. It doesn't mean, guys, that I use achievement-based praise a lot. So I love saying well done and good job and stuff. So, and I don't say stop doing that, stop using those phrases, never say excellent again, never say awesome again. No. However, so according to a lot of research which they've conducted, I came across quite a few articles. And believe me, people like researchers, they do study these things, and psychologists, they have different groups of students. Each group is praised in a particular way for a particular certain period of time. And then they measure the level of motivations in those groups. So cutting the long story short, researchers say that those students who only get this excellent, wow, good job, well, and so on, so achievement-based phrases, they only care, or they care most of all about, high marks, being the best, being perfect. These students are afraid of mistakes. They don't like mistakes because they see that it's a failure. I'm a failure. They don't see they don't enjoy learning because they don't actually understand that mistakes and learning, mistakes are an integral part of learning. So that's why it is recommended. I hope it will make sense to you. So I'll try to explain it just briefly. They say, researchers say, like, keep using achievement-based phrases, but they work the best if you do it for the whole class or for groups of students. Okay, so they don't develop this habit of only striving for this immaculate, perfect answers, but they have this positive feeling because you say, guys, everyone, well done today. Thank you so much for the lesson. And you address them all. You say, group A, you are the stars. You were the fastest. Now, everyone, let's applause. Group A, like, good job, 10 out of 10. And so on. So whenever you want to use all these phrases, which you've already mentioned in the chat, think about at least a pair of students, both of you, good job, group, class. However, with effort-based and behavior-based praise, the researchers say that they work the best and they are the most motivating types of praise when you do it individually. Students really love it when it can be done at the end of the lesson, or when they do some group speaking and you go around and then you just bend down and you whisper to someone, wow, guys, I'm impressed. You're so polite. Only thank you. Your turn. Good job. And you move on. And one student might hear that, or a couple of students, but still it's more intimate, if you want. And students like it because, you know, she notices this. She does care. And all these behavior-based issues again. So think it over, just think it over, give it a try, and hopefully it will boost your students' general level of motivation. That's basically it. Just keep in mind that praise is important. You already know it. You've been praising your students. Praise smartly, keeping in mind those 3 types of praise. No overpraising, obviously, it's something really obvious, right? Because if you keep repeating some phrases like good job, good job, good job for no reason at all, sometimes students feel it straight away. And this phrase becomes a nonsense. So it doesn't mean much. And we never compare students, obviously, yeah, because this is important when you want to praise. So we never say, so this is the best, you know, answer I've ever get, the best work in class. So we only compare students with their own previous results, so never against each other. And a few more things. I'll get faster here because we're almost at the end of the topic. So I've got tips 3, 2, and 1, but these are more of reminders to you guys because I'm sure you know these things, so nothing new. Tip 3 is get to know your students, get to know as much as possible about your students, their life, their preferences from outside school, outside your lessons. But you know this, don't you do it already? I'm sure you do. I'm sure you ask students which are not linked to this particular book page, right? Do you do that? Do you ask students about music they're into, fashion they like prefer? That's what I do because sometimes I see that they are discussing, for example, a certain film, and I have no idea what even style of film they're talking about. And then they say it's kind of Korean or Japanese something, and I ask for recommendations. I sometimes think, okay, guys, what music are you listening to? Can you give me any recommendations? I want some fresh stuff. So I want to get some new energy. And I note down the films they recommend, the songs they recommend. And believe me, if you really find some time and watch it or listen to that song, even if you don't like it, you don't have to like everything. But believe me, when you bring it up later, maybe 1 month later, guys, do you remember that song you are recommended like that? I did listen. I loved it. Now I just drink my morning coffee while listening to this song and stuff. So they like it because they see that, well, she remembers what I said. Whenever there is a slightest chance that students can teach you something, just ask for their advice, ask them to teach you how to download a certain app, even if you kind of know, but they can teach you. So that you can say, I need to download, I don't know, money budgeting, like this whole home budgeting, like apps. I have 5 options here in Play Market. How do I choose? And believe me, teenage students will have a lot to explain you about, the apps. They will say, read see the rates, read the comments. So let me choose. If I were you, I would download this one. Do you want me to download it for you? Or, okay, you'll do it by. So they like it. They definitely like it when they see that, well, you don't know something and they do. Smartphones, obviously, guys, if you have the slightest reason for students to let students to use their phones to Google and, be the first to find some information quickly during the lesson, just do it. They love it, obviously. Okay, just a quick reminder, obviously, well, I'm sure you know this, but still, a reminder. One more thing, so we all have a certain tool, the core tool, so we all use different course books. My example here is obviously it's a Pearson resource because as a teacher, I've worked with Focus for many years, quite a few years already. So no matter what course book you have, while planning your lesson, you like look through the exercises, you think about time, like how much time you'll allocate for each task, but still. Try to notice those things which you can extend upon. For example, I see that this film is mentioned one of the exercises. I start my lesson not with that lesson page. I start my lesson with a film trailer. I play the film trailer. I ask students if they watched this film called Hidden Figures. By the way, have you watched this film? In Ukrainian, it's called Приховані фігури. Have you? Pluses, minuses? It's worth watching. I wouldn't say it's, my favorite film, but it's worth watching. It's worth recommending, just for teenagers. It's about women who worked at NASA in the 50s, the 60s, that times when especially, African-American women had quite tough times. And these women were geniuses. They worked as computers, human computers at NASA. And this film is based on a true story of Katherine Johnson. Thank you, Tatiana. That's right. A real woman who worked there, who, just went through all those challenges of being a woman at NASA. And she was kind of African-American, though. She looks quite light here, light-skinned, but quite an interesting film to watch maybe with teenagers or to recommend. And again, you start with a film and then they open the book and, it clicks. It's like, oh yeah, that's the use of English page, but this is interesting. It's real. Or just a similar example, science and technology, quite a boring topic for at least my teenagers. Every time we speak about Marie Skłodowska-Curie and, but I see Alan Turing. And I think straight away about The Imitation Game. Wonderful. This is a great film with Cumberbatch. Who played the character? He played Alan Turing. The guy, remember, who cracked the Nazi Enigma code. So if you have not watched The Imitation Game, highly recommend it. So, and again, you start with such a thing and then you do the page. Again, students do some simple gap fill, but you see Stevie Wonder. Just stop for a second. Well, after you do the task, obviously, or after sentence 2. Make the short break. Play one song. Students might not even know this name because they listen to different music now. Tell a few words about, this type of blues, just music. Ask what students think, whether they like it or not. So, and then you move on. But students will remember these moments. There is some grammar about past habits and past simple. Bring some photos from your album. And that's how you kind of make it real, this book page lesson. And so you see it's something about used to. I know I'll ask them to bring some photos where they're little kids, like as a part of homework. So what I do sometimes, I show myself when I was their age, or I show a picture of myself when I was a little kid, which again brings some, it's just fun. It's just something memorable. Students like it. Okay, so that's, again, how to motivate students. And number 1, very quickly, again, it's not a tip, it's just a reminder. It's something, guys, which you know. Remember that students don't care about these things, okay? So they don't care what your school administration thinks of you. They don't care whether your colleagues respect you. They think you're a professional. They don't. Students only use this gut feeling or their feelings, like they either like you or they don't like you. As simple as that. And it affects the simple, I like him or her, or I don't like him or her. Students discuss a teacher. I like her. Or, I don't like her. As simple as that. But this is the way, this is something which affects their level of motivation in your classroom. Why? Because of this. Students don't really learn from people they don't like. And this is very simple but universal truth. So my message here, obviously, my tip is not, just make sure students like you. I can't say anything like this, but my tip is try to become popular. Try to become that cool adult who students respect, who they kind of look up to, admire. That would be great. But, just let's be realistic. My message is students will like you more, let's say, if they see that you treat them like adults, if they see that you're open, if they see that you're not ashamed to show them a picture of yourself when you were 15 years old, maybe, you know, with some spots on your face, but they see that you're open. If I don't know a word, I say it, I admit it. I say, guys, I don't know how to say that in English. Let's look it up. Who's the first to Google and find the answer? Go, go, go. Teach me the word. I don't know. And they like it. Okay, being fair, obviously, being consistent. If you promise to do something, obviously you do that. No teacher's pets. Obviously, we always have some students we prefer over others, but you never let them know like who's your like favorite student in class and stuff. So it's again something very, very obvious, but I wanted to make this short reminder. So those were my 7 tips, guys. If you try at least 1 or 2 or 5 of them, hopefully, I'll help you motivate your students. I don't know which of these tips will press which of these 2 buttons, but hopefully some of them will work. Я дуже всім дякую за увагу, за участь. Дякую. Не дуже сьогодні, чесно, активно, але все-таки за участь тих. Дякую, хто не лінувався, писав в чаті. Мені це цінно. Я сьогодні декілька разів згадувала про фокус. Це наш прекрасний ресурс. Якщо ви ще не гортали, не знайомі, то раджу погортати, особливо якщо ви працюєте зі старшокласниками, починаючи десь з 8 класу, ми рекомендуємо фокус не раніше, тому що є, окрім сефрівських рівнів, є ще така штука, як age appropriacy, він задорослий для таких молодших підлітків. Тому 2-й, 3-й, 4-й рівень, фокус 2-й – це десь 8 клас, 3-й, 4-й – це вже 9-й, 10-й, 11-й класи. Хочу нагадати, друзі, вам контакти Лесі Гриценко, якщо раптом у вас немає телефона менеджера з Internal Education. Леся відповідає за певні, співпрацює з певними районами міста Києва, але вона обов'язково сконтактує вас з цією особою, де ви працюєте, чи в якому районі ви проживаєте чи працюєте, тому ось її телефон. І лотерея, я пам'ятаю, зараз швиденько беру 3 імейли, я пам'ятаю про лотерею. Нагадаю, що на нашому сайті Internal Education UA, якщо раптом завтра або післязавтра ви не отримаєте на пошту собі сертифікати, ви заходите на сайт, в розділ підвищення кваліфікації, там є підрозділ сертифікати. Вводите свій емейл, за яким ви реєструєтесь на вебінар, і ви побачите всі свої сертифікати, раптом не отримаєте. Це перший момент. І другий, у нас там постійно оновлюється календар подій, якщо вам цікаво слідкувати за нашими івентами. Там є багато всього, вже більшість івентів, які ми планували на вересень, вже, власне, пройшли, але не можу не звернути увагу саме на цей спеціальний івент. Ми дуже довго чекали, до останнього не знали, чи у Геннадія вийде, впевнена, що ви впізнаєте цього пана. Геннадій Білоус, наш чудовий колега, ми за ним дуже сумуємо, правда. Зараз Геннадій служить, немає можливості багато приділяти часу методиці викладання англійської мови, але це тема, з якою є на моїй пам'яті вже років 2. Це тема, яка його цікавила, він зараз говорив, я зроблю колись вебінар про українська на уроці англійської, треба, не треба, в яких ситуаціях і так далі. І от він зробив цей вебінар, ми дуже раді, правда. Тому, якщо буде у вас можливість, це буде 5 жовтня, це неділя, друзі, не дивуйтесь, це єдиний день, коли Геннадій зможе провести вебінар, тому є можливість, будь ласка, заходите в сайт, календар подій, ви побачите назву, Friend or Foe, будь ласка, будемо раді. Я там, як учасник, теж буду обов'язково, тому що мені це цікаво. Так, і тепер лотерея Grammar and Focus, рівень, подивіться, який хороший рівень, B1+. B1+, це дуже такий, напевно, популярніший у нас рівень. Тому зараз я швиденько зроблю наступним чином. Так, дякую вам, друзі, бачу, приємні слова пишете. Так, зараз я, щоб ви все ж у нас було fair and honest, у мене є, бачите, такий гарний, зараз я... ваш списочок з оцім, мені потрібні ваші імейли. І я їх копіюю, і я користуюсь, Так, demirandom.org. Зараз, секундочку. І вставляю наші імейли ось сюди. Все, всім удачі. Fingers crossed, it's you. Whoever I speak about. Ось у нас 3 імейли. Так, я вітаю уже переможців. Якщо ви себе бачите, я за вас рада, друзі. Якщо ні, я бачила, що вже дехто пішов. З вас, з переможцями, в будь-якому випадку сконтактують мої колеги і домовляться, як вам надіслати ці подаруночки. Що ж, ще раз дуже дякую всім, бережіть себе. Залишаємося на зв'язку. Мені було дуже приємно сьогодні з вами. Слава Україні і до зустрічі. Всім до побачення. Пані Ларисо, я за вас чесно, дуже щиро рада, тому що, бачите, як ви сьогодні були активною в чаті, мені дуже приємно, що вам пощастило. Це чудово. Вам зателефонують. Все, всім до побачення. До побачення. Бережіть себе.
Дуже дякую всім за увагу, дуже дякую за ваш час. Бажаю залишатися в ресурсі та завжди мати поруч надійні професійні ресурси, на які можна спиратися в своїй роботі. Дуже дякую. До побачення. До нових зустрічей.